Welcome back to Origami Snowman. I love stories. Like, I love the structure of them. I like when people, like when a story follows the mold. I'm a writer. I love to write. And when people talk about story structure, I don't exactly know what they mean, but I know when a story works, and I know when a story doesn't work. But what I really love is when someone takes story structure and they change some aspect of it so that everything they taught you in high school about story structure suddenly is like irrelevant. My daughter is in middle school, and one of her teachers told her never use italics ever for any reason ever. It's never right to use italics. That's just stupid. So when I wrote my last book, Secretly Kings, I made sure to use italics whenever I could. So, writing, storytelling is an art, and art should, defy tradition. It should break the rules. And so, I want to talk about some movies that I think have such excellent story structure. They border on almost perfect stories. I'm going to start with The Princess Bride, because The Princess Bride is one of those movies that it has something for every taste. It is a fantasy. It is an action movie. It is a romance. It is a comedy. There's political intrigue. It's just a great movie. And, they start out with this character, Fred Savage, the little boy in bed who's sick, the grandson. And, he just wants to play his video games and be sick, His grandpa's coming over. Oh, grandpa, he always pinches my cheeks. Well, maybe this time he won't. Peter Falk walks in. The first thing he does, he goes, hey, and he pinches his cheek, and all of a sudden you relate to the kid because you're like, yep, I just want to be left alone. But there are these people who are going to come in and they're going to shove their agenda down my throat, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? So you immediately relate to this kid, which is good because there is no one in the actual story who is relatable, what we would consider relatable. So the story in the movie gives us a character to relate to, because the actual story, the reason we're there, not relatable at all. And this is fantastic. You have to have a relatable character, right? So now we feel connected to whatever happens next, which is an absolutely phenomenal story. So, you have the lovers, who are sweet and perfect and wonderful, and immediately you're rooting for them. And then tragedy, he goes off to find his fortune and is killed by pirates. And to which Fred Savage replies, murdered by pirates is good, because we were all thinking it. If you got to be murdered by pirates. Looks great on a tombstone. But then poor Buttercup, we forget that there are those left behind who now have to clean up the mess, right? The mess being her emotions and what's going to become of her. Luckily she was beautiful and the prince fell in love with her and wanted to marry her, or so we're led to believe. Because as we all know, the prince is always a dirtbag. Not always, but in this story he is. So now, even though we can't really relate to Buttercup, we're sympathetic to her, so we feel like we relate to her. How many of you have been, offered to a prince in marriage and then kidnapped, and had a plot against your life in order to start a war? Not a super relatable scenario, but because we're sympathetic, because we're invested emotionally, we get to feel for her. We get to feel like she's our girl, And then enter these three criminals. You've got Vicini, you've got Inigo Montoya, and you've got Fezzik. And, you see Vicini, and he's a little bit of they cheat, because they use his physical presence, his looks, to immediately turn you against him. Okay, he is Wallace Shawn is he's a short, bald man. Right there, I immediately identify with him. But he also has sort of this is unpleasant what I'm about to say, and I'm so sorry. He has a wet mouth. Okay, he has a wet mouth, big lips, tiny teeth. He looks like a fish. Okay, he has a catfish look to him, and immediately you're kind of like, ew, I don't like that guy. You know, of course not, because he kidnapped Buttercup. But then we see his employees. We see Inigo, who is this stately Spaniard with cool hair and a questionable facial hair. But he has he's hardworking and he's got that sort of swashbuckler look. And then you've got Fezzik, and you don't know how to feel about Fezzik. That could go either way, right up until the rhyming. They give him this innocent, childlike little moment where he finds rhyming words with Inigo, and they have this little back and forth, and it's sweet and it's funny and we like it. But then Vizzini comes in and he puts a stop to it. Wet Mouth stops the fun. They always do. And so we in minutes we know how we feel about everybody. Okay, now we want Buttercup rescued, but we also are thinking maybe these guys aren't so bad. Wet Mouth sucks, but maybe the other two guys are going to be nice. Okay. We never see, anyone do anything overtly cruel to her except for Vizzini, who threatens her and he takes joy in it. And so our suspicions are verified that he's no good. And then Fezzik starts to question, why do we have to kill? And so all of our first opinions are justified in that moment, and it's great. And then we see, who's this man in black coming up behind him, and all the mystery and everything, and it's this story that starts out so sweet and so kind, and then very quickly turns into a chase. And we don't know much. All we know is bad guys took good girl, good guys after bad guys to save good girl. And so that's what we know. And then there's this mystery man in black. And the dialogue. And it's like there's this mutual respect between the swordsman. And it's just everything is so captivating and so delightful. And, at this point, you're sure, okay, Buttercup is going to get out of it. We don't know how. Either she's going to figure out some clever thing or somebody's going to come along. She is a victim of circumstance, but she might also be saved by circumstance, And it just unravels and mysteries unfold and we get the answers we want and everything is great. And then all of a sudden, plot twist and this and that and the other thing. And it turns out Prince Humperdinck really was a dirtbag. And, it's a great story. And all the bad people get, they get their comeuppance. All the good people get away. And it's just it's a delightful movie. It's so funny. It's so good. It's so romantic. Miracle Max is hilarious. It's an amazing movie. Everybody, when the camera is on them, they are soaking it up. It's just a perfect movie. Now let's talk about another movie that came out roughly the same time. Hang on one second. I'm going to do something a little gross. I'm fine. And so, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The crazy thing about Ferris Bueller's Day Off is it's such a product of its time. You got the cool high school student who pushes back at authority. He pulls the wool over everybody's eyes. He gets to go on this awesome adventure. It's all his own doing. He planned it. He staged it. He cajoled everybody. He pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. His best friend who didn't want any part of it, no choice. Ferris gets what he wants. Okay, his sister Jeannie That is her big complaint. Why does he get away with everything? Why is he so special? That he should get away with everything. And we hate Jeannie. We really do hate her. But if you think about it, she has a very good point. Ferris is not, he takes his friends along, but not so much because he wants his friends to have a good time, but he needs an audience. Okay? And he knows that by letting Cameron just go on feeling bad, claiming that we haven't done anything good today, what a boring day. Okay, yeah, Cameron's a bit of a wet blanket, but he also knows that he is going to need to talk to somebody about this day at some point. He's going to need to reminisce. And how do you reminisce with someone who had a terrible time, right? So Ferris Bueller is essentially a narcissist who he's planning for 10 years down the line. He's planning a day that will get him through his late 20s. He's building up memories that will keep him warm at night, essentially. And he knows this. He's a narcissist. However, the story makes us root for him. We love him because he's so much more interesting than anyone else. He's so much more likable than anyone else. They stack the deck. They make his parents stupid. They make his principal mean. They make his sister vindictive. Because the people surrounding him are so vanilla, we root for Ferris. Put him in any other movie and he's the villain. Great storytelling. I love that. I love when they twist things around and they say, listen, look at Star Wars. If you reframe Star Wars, you could put a patriotic twist on it, and suddenly the Empire is fighting against terrorists who are trying to bring down their way of life. They are trying to bring an end to the peace. They're religious zealots who, they destroyed a peacekeeping military installment, and then went about destroying more of the galaxy. It's easy to spin that story around, and that's exactly what Ferris Bueller did. And I'm all for it. I think it's terrific. Again, honestly, Ferris Bueller, not a bad guy, just he's a narcissist. Typically not someone you want to watch in a movie, but this movie you do. Right? Right up until the Ferrari was, spoiler alert, didn't make it to the end of the movie. And that was a beautiful car. So Ferris Bueller's Day Off, narcissism aside, still, I think, nearly a perfect movie. It's so much fun to watch. It's so good. You forget all of your, I don't know what you call it, your misgivings about people like Ferris, and you root for him. And that's what a movie should do. It should make you forget for a little bit. Whatever. You should be able to forget things. So another movie that does something similar is Hot Fuzz. The main character, Nicholas Angel in Hot Fuzz, he's a police sergeant in London, and he's the best at his job, which makes him pretty boring. He's, his love interest in the movie, she complains that he can never switch off. It's always about the job, That's not a fun person. That's not your main character. That's, oh boy, that was unfortunate. That's someone that, gets in the way of the main character, okay? But they took this guy, this very boring, very by-the-books police officer, and they made him not, I won't say likable, but admirable. And so you're rooting for him. Oh my goodness. I'm already at 8,200. Oh, this is turning into a longer video than I thought. And Edgar Wright is very, very good at taking traditionally unlikable characters and making you root for them, putting them at the head of the table, and you listen to them and you believe that what they want is right. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I love that movie. Scott Pilgrim is not a likable character. He's relatable, but not likable. He's sort of all the things about yourself that you don't like, that you would change if you could. He's egotistical. He is dating a high school girl just because it's nice. He knows it's going to end poorly for her, but it doesn't. That's not his problem, And he has a history of being not a great boyfriend, and but still somehow always plays the victim. He's just not. He's not likable. He's not a good friend. Of course, neither are his friends. They're not. They're not great friends. But it's a great movie. And why? I don't know. I have no idea why it's funny. But the only likable character in the movie is his gay roommate Wallace, who he sees everything happening. He knows exactly what he wants. He knows exactly what everyone is doing, and he just sort of observes and doles out occasional wisdom every now and then. And Wallace he's hilarious, and he keeps telling Scott, you can't do this. You gotta break up with the girl. You're being cruel to this young lady, and he's I won't say he's kind, but he has a very clear understanding of what Scott is actually doing, and he knows it's not right. So he's trying to help out where he can when he thinks it's necessary. Nobody else does that. Everyone else just gives unsolicited advice and breaks people's hearts unnecessarily. And yes, Wallace did steal Scott's sister's boyfriend. That was a long sentence with a lot of people in it, but they're adults. Anyway, moving on. The last movie I want to talk about is The Martian. And as far as story convention goes, this one is brilliant. You can't break it down any easier. You've got a likable character who gets stuck in an impossible situation, and he is left by himself to figure a way out. And we get to watch as that happens. And it is brilliant. It's like watching Castaway if Tom Hanks had more of a sense of humor. Yeah, he talked to the volleyball, but that wasn't humor. That was madness. We saw him break and paint a face on a volleyball. Matt Damon in The Martian, he at least has this. There's video logs being recorded of everything, so that they can study it for posterity and all this other stuff. And so he at least knows he has an audience, and that helps him maintain sanity. And we get to watch him go through such a series of emotions. When we first see him, he's very funny, very friendly, very chummy. He's kind of, given his space partners, the other astronauts, giving them a little bit of just sort of chiding them a little bit, just teasing them, and they have a great back and forth. You can tell how much they like each other. They're nice people. They're fun people to be around. They like each other, which, as I understand, is rare for scientists because nobody likes a scientist, even scientists. But they like each other, and we see that right away, and so we want them to succeed. And then Mark gets stranded. They have to leave Mars. Mark gets stranded. They think he's dead, and he's sitting there. He knows they think he's dead. He knows he's alone. He knows he's stranded, but he decides, I'm not going to die here. And he starts taking steps to do that. So we see this character that we already like, and we know other people like him too. He's funny. He's likable. He's friendly. And he's in a bad spot. And we want him to get out of this spot, but how in the world is he going to? He can't do it. And the movie unfolds, and it just, you just see how it goes. And you know, it's delightful. I know I use that word a lot, but it really is. It's I want to say a harmless movie because, the whole tone is he's going to be okay. That's how it is. At no point do you think, "Oh, he's dead." He might lose a finger. At one point he does blow himself up, but and then he he makes a remark that he didn't account for the excess oxygen that he was exhaling, and that's why the explosion happened. And he calls himself an idiot. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's trace amounts of oxygen every time you exhale, and you didn't account for. I couldn't tell you how much oxygen I breathe in. I wouldn't even know what unit of measure to use, and he's beating himself up because there are trace amounts as he breathes out, and that created a perfect environment for an explosion. I don't know. He beats himself up, and don't we all? So yeah, The Martian. Oh, good gravy! The Martian was great. I loved it. Ridley Scott. Yeah, I know he's made some bad movies, but I couldn't tell you which ones. Oh, come on, hole in one. Dadgum. So you've got these movies that tell amazing stories, and none of them are, well, not none of them. Some movies do adhere to the classic, you know, 3-act play. Do you know what I'm saying? But not all of them, and they don't have to. And if you're a storyteller, or if you're an artist, or if you're a songwriter, when I say artist, I mean like painter, or you doodle, the visual arts. It's all art. Writing is art. Singing is art. Dance is art. It's all art. And whatever you do, whatever story you're telling with your art, it doesn't have to adhere to any guidelines. Just in fact, the stories that I just laid out for you might actually adhere to the guidelines, to like the classic storytelling, 3-act whatever. But I don't know. I never studied this stuff officially. I observe this stuff. I watch movies, I read books, and I pay attention to how things go and how things work. And sometimes you'll see this three act. This is gonna be one of those holes, isn't it? I don't like it. I don't like it. Sometimes those 3-part stories take way too long. And sometimes you realize you're at the end of part 3 and you haven't wrapped it up, so you got to rush it. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, what happened? So no, let your story have as much time as it needs. Don't. If somebody tells you italics are never okay to use, man, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Shut up. That's not how it works. If somebody says, "Oh, sorry, you have to paint things the way you see them." No, you don't. Nothing has to be the way you see it, or the way you hear it, or the way it is. It only has to be the way you want it to be. That's the point of art, is to shape something the way you want it shaped. So, I'm dragging this out so I can finish this hole. I really don't want to end in the middle of a hole. Nope. Okay, that was admirable. Let's try again. Oh my goodness. There are some movies that are just they're beyond reproach, or rather people think they're beyond reproach. Shawshank Redemption, Schindler's List, other movies. These are movies that when they're oh my, they employ that storytelling pattern, and it works, but it has, I don't know how to, what I'm trying to say here is going to sound like an insult. Those are great movies. There's no denying that those are great movies. However, they're almost too simple. They they follow a pattern, and there are other movies that do this too. And again, great movies of, oh, there we go. You've got your downtrodden main character who eventually, does great, wonderful things, overcomes adversity, and becomes the hero. And we do love that story, but isn't it kind of, isn't that a little too easy? Can't we root for the bad guy sometimes to stay bad? I will tell you one story that like kind of gets it right. Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, Johnny Depp's character Jack Sparrow. There's no real arc. There's no arc, but we love it. He starts out. He's looking for his ship. He just wants his ship, right? And he's willing to do just about anything to get it. He doesn't really care who he hurts. He's a pretty selfish guy. He's a narcissist. I'm so sorry. He is a Ferris Bueller. Okay. The movie ends, and what does he have? His ship. And what has he learned? That that you can get away with a lot, and people will still like you. Those are fun stories. Those are real fun. So, anyway, I'm rambling about stories. I do love stories. I love them. I love them, and I love you guys. You guys are amazing and wonderful, and this looks like an easy hole-in-one, so let's prove me wrong. Boom, nailed it. Awesome. You guys are great and wonderful, and thanks for letting me ramble a bit. I will talk to you, hopefully, in the next one. Maybe not. Maybe I'll sing to you. That will never happen. Anyway, good night and goodbye and so long.